This week, we are going to be talking specifically about 3 things that you need to be aware of when it comes to what your Instagram grid is currently telling your audience, what the perception might be around that, and why ultimately, in my opinion, having a grid is really, really important, and how it's something that you shouldn't just kind of throw out there. You should definitely be putting time and energy and effort into to make sure that the perception you're giving off is really good. I get asked this all the time. Why do I need an Instagram grid? Is that even necessary? Like, does the aesthetic really even matter that much? And again, if you're going to spend time working on Instagram, or in this case, if you're going to spend time posting on Instagram, you might as well make sure that it is actually going to do a service to you or be of service to your cause. You don't want any of your effort obviously to be in vain. So we definitely want to make sure that we're taking the time to put that intentionality behind this. So I'm going to start by telling you guys that I recently had a client who told me, well, like, I post on Instagram and I make templates in Canva and I don't really have a plan. I just kind of throw it out there, but at least I know like my branding's there. And I went to her Instagram and she definitely had branding, right? She definitely had a color palette chosen and had spent some time building that side of things. But what I noticed on her Instagram was that it was very, very hodgepodge. So it was kind of just thrown together. There really wasn't any thought process or strategy behind when she was posting what content. It was kind of more of like, oh, I just have something to post today, so I'm just going to post it. On the flip side of that example, there is the other side of the spectrum where you have some people who they post super, super inconsistently. And most of the time it's because they don't feel like they have anything to share. They forget to take pictures. They don't have a listing coming up. They don't really understand value series or how to add value. So if they do post anything value related, typically it'll be like a graphic or like an infographic of some kind that really doesn't serve a lot of purpose. So you have I don't really know what I'm supposed to be posting, so I'm just gonna not post unless I feel like I have something worthy. And then the flip side of that is you're posting consistently, you have branding, but there's no strategy behind when or how you're posting something. So when you go to somebody's Instagram and it looks like very hodgepodgey, it doesn't look as good. There's really not like a cadence to it. There's not a cycle to it. You quote unquote post, the same thing every Tuesday. But in reality, that's not really what you're supposed to do on Instagram, because Instagram doesn't work like a traditional 5-day across or 7-day across calendar that you download off the internet. So I am going to try to help you guys bridge that gap, come to the middle of that, and understand how the value in creating a grid is so much more than just it being pretty. If you go to somebody's Instagram, it looks really good. It's consistent. It's a mixture of personal and business. And when you land on it, you just kind of feel like, wow, this person just kind of gets it, right? And some of you guys may know somebody like that. Maybe somebody who's really good at social media, maybe an agent who's taken a class, maybe you've been in my program and you've been able to leverage that. But when you land on somebody's Instagram like that, a couple of things happen. Mentally, as a consumer, you're going to be like, wow, this person like obviously is putting effort and time into this, and it clearly shows. So what does that do? That is step number 1, or reason number 1 why you need to have a grid. It creates this credibility to your name. So if you're taking the time to have a plan, post content consistently, build a brand, it really builds credibility for you as an individual, and for someone who is scrolling the Instagram interwebs, if you will. They are more likely to stop on your account and then stay there if they feel like you're adding value to them, and if you have this kind of wow factor that goes into it. So am I saying that you have to have the most perfect Canva templates in order for this to happen? Absolutely not. Am I saying you need to spend I actually met someone who spent $5,000 just on her color palette and branding, and I was like, excuse me, what? So do you need to spend $5,000 on branding, colors, and building a palette and all of that? Absolutely not. But on the flip side of that, do you need to spend time building content and creating a brand, developing that brand palette, so that when your content does come out and is on Instagram, it has that wow scroll stop factor? The answer is absolutely yes. Number 1 is that having an aesthetic or having a grid that is consistent, has a strategy, looks intentional. When you land on it and you have that wow factor, 3 things. Number 1, it builds credibility. So it creates that if they're this consistent at posting content on here, they're this in depth on what they're doing on their Instagram, I can only imagine what they are in their actual business. Like if I were to hire them as an agent or as a loan officer. And also for, those of you guys in title, we have a lot of people who are title reps. If that's you on that side, what does having a really solid Instagram presence do for you? And what does that branding and aesthetic do for you? It also creates that credibility for an agent, right? Who might need you, or if you're offering a class on something and you are trying to get attendance and your Instagram is a hodgepodge of a bunch of random things with no plan, you're probably not going to get anybody that clicks on that event. Now, on the same token, if you're posting a flyer for an event and it's not formatted correctly to Instagram, the caption is little to none, you have no idea what you're doing with links or hashtags or any of that, somebody that's coming across that post is probably not going to be willing to or not be enticed into that. And that's just the reality, right? So that's perception. Now, does that mean you're not an amazing title rep? Of course it doesn't. It just means that you don't understand the platform, which means that the perception that you're giving off to the audience that's consuming your content is that you don't know what you're doing. And so the problem with that is, again, we're not capturing attention and we're not building credibility behind our name. So building the branding, building the aesthetic, building the cadence of our content so that when someone lands on our Instagram and says, wow, this is beautiful, and wow, this is really put together, that automatically builds credibility. And there's a lot of psychology involved in that, because ultimately the goal for us is to get somebody to land on our account and get them to stay. So the grid and what we post on our grid and the layout, the style, the templates, the colors, all of those things matter. The formatting matters, right? Are your videos cut off? Are your flyers that you're posting not sized to fit correctly to Instagram? Are all of those things happening? That is so important for your credibility and really a huge part of what we're trying to do. Number 2 is being able to ultimately get people to confidently or with confidence reach out to you. If you're building a grid and you're taking the time to build a presence, post consistently, develop that branding, and then put it all out there, the idea is that you build credibility, which is number 1. But then more importantly, number 2 is that you're getting people or creating confidence in people that they can reach out to you and actually get a hold of you. So having a grid, posting consistently, showing up there, tell somebody, yes, I can confidently reach out to this person because I know that they will likely respond. Now, if I can go a little bit deeper here for you guys, how many of you guys have ever gone on somebody's Instagram page, and maybe it's not business related? I just did this the other day, but I literally DM'd a bakery to make a cake for my son's first birthday, and she responded immediately. She responded so fast, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then on the flip side, I remember almost 3 years ago now, when my husband and I were planning our wedding, I found the wedding venue on Instagram, and I reached out to them on there. Sent them a DM and said, hey, I'm really interested in your venue. I've seen a bunch of people that I know that have gotten married here, and it's just gorgeous. It's the exact venue that we want. Can you email me? I gave them my email address, and can you give me pricing? To this day, I never have received a response from that Instagram page. Now, we ended up going somewhere else, right? We ended up finding another venue that I actually had communication with. And now, why is that important? That just goes to tell you that that venue lost an opportunity with me because they weren't being consistent on their platform. They weren't creating that confidence in me that by reaching out to them that they were actually going to respond. But I did it anyway because I had been referred to them by a couple other people. And then they confirmed I probably won't get a response because they never did respond. So all of this tied in together. Number 1 is that credibility factor. Number 2, if you're posting consistently, you have the branding in play, you're creating content that makes somebody stop and want to look at it. And the most important thing with this is you're posting consistently. I know I've kind of said that before, but this goes back to number 1 here, where if you're not posting consistently, and like the most recent post is like 3 weeks old or 4 weeks old or a year old, right? That person who's seeing your content is not going to reach out to you. They're just not going to have confidence. But if they look on your feed and they see that you've posted consistently every single day for a long time, or even if it's not every single day, maybe it's every other day. We teach a 30-day content calendar in my program, but that doesn't mean that you have to post every single day for the entire month. That just means that that's how we teach you guys in order to flex that muscle of being consistently showing up. So if you're posting consistently, I can go on your Instagram and see that you have stories up, and I can see that you've posted on your feed multiple times in the last week. All of a sudden, as a consumer, which is the key here, me being the consumer, I am so much more likely to reach out to you. I have the confidence inadvertently or subliminally or whatever word you want to use, I have the confidence that if I send a message, one, you're going to see it, two, you're going to respond to me. That's what you want your presence to show. The other piece to this is kind of subliminal. If you're building a grid and you're creating a plan, it allows you to also elevate every other piece of your marketing and stay more invested in your marketing. So here's one piece to this. If you have made branding and you created like a color palette and Canva templates and you're not using them, most likely, guys, you're not in love with them, right? And that is Psychology 101. Everything we teach is rooted in psychology. I have spent years and years mastering the art of why people make decisions and do things the way that they do. And part of what that says to us is that if we are not invested in the content that we're producing, we will eventually stop producing it. When you first start working out, nobody likes working out, right? Nobody likes feeling like they're gonna fall over and die. I live in Louisiana now, where the humidity yesterday was 100%, and then it started pouring rain and hailing for like 20 minutes completely out of nowhere. Well, it was 100 degrees outside. And so yeah, there's nothing fun about working out in that. But what am I addicted to? I am addicted to the part that is on the flip side of that, which is the outcome. I may not be addicted to the I want to die, fall on the floor in front of this fan, but I'm addicted to the outcome, which means that I'm going to continue to put the work in to get that result. So if you're creating branding and creating templates and putting content out and you don't even like the colors that you're putting out there, you don't like the result of what that all looks like, then you're not going to keep doing it. That is just the reality of this. So having a grid that inspires you or you feel connected to is how you're going to be able to create the confidence to continue to make content, which then leads to you're now being consistent, which then now leads to the credibility factor.